Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for staying for the final countdown. Like somebody's going to start singing for me. No, not happening. Okay, thank you so much for coming, though. We are going to do a live podcast recording. So, yes, we are recording. Yes, you can make noise and make it sound like there's a gigantic audience in here, which there is. Anyone clapping? No. Yes. Yes. There we go. All right. Well, I wanted to quickly, before we get into the Grocery Shop 2024 Key Takeaways, wanted to give you a quick background. Those listening at home right now know Chris and they know me. We are the founders of OmniTalk Retail. We are the only retail podcast that is in Apple's top 100 podcasts right now. So go right now. You can download any of the episodes, and this episode will be available for everybody right after the show. So if you need to take notes for the rest of your team back at home, that's where to go do it. Now, next, I want to make sure we introduce the real experts that are up here. Ben Miller and Raquan Lucas from the Grocery Shop team who are joining us. Big round of applause for Ben and Raquan.
Hey, thank you.
For those of you who don't know them, Ben is the Vice President of Original Content and Strategy for Grocery Shop and Shop Talk. And in his role, he works with the internal teams here to create external research with partners to lead content creation across Grocery Shop and Shop Talk spring, fall, and Europe shows. And then Raquan is Grocery Shop's Vice President of Content. He oversees the agenda that we were all following this week. He develops that and does speaker recruitment for Grocery Shop. And now that we have the intros out of the way, I just want to give you a quick rundown of how this is going to work. So the four of us got up very early this morning to put together our key takeaways from the show so far. So we're going to go through, just like the last session, and rapid fire. We have 4 minutes for each topic to talk through exactly what each of our takeaways were. And brace yourself for the buzzer, because if you thought that I was loud when I came out here, that buzzer is going to blow you all away. So let's get into it. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, gentlemen. The first topic is around what the overall feeling of the show is and what the state of the grocery industry is right now. Ben, we're going to you first, sir.
Great. So I'm going to use a rule of thumb that it's never too early in the wrap-up session to talk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So
I don't think rapid session even needs to be a qualifier. I think it's never too early to talk about Taylor.
It's never too early. So
Never too late.
if the grocery industry was getting dressed to go out, it would be wearing there's a lot going on at the moment t-shirt right now. So there is an awful lot going on. But what that's created around the show is a real buzz. So there's been real energy. There's been real buzz. And that's kind of almost at a contrast with how kind of tough the market is at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think what's that's created is an environment where people want to learn. They're trying to shape because there's some massive forces pulling the industry in different things. And it's also created a real feeling of kind of collaborativeness, but also openness to the extent that it's almost kind of descended into therapy at times. So I'm sure you've been in conversation. The amount of openness, because people have got the same problems, and we're trying to solve these same problems together. And I think the last one probably is a bit more seriously. It's been great spending time with some incredible retail and brand executives, and having looked into quite a few retailers' eyes over the last couple of days. There's a lot of tired people in our industry. It's tough. People are working hard. So, we're going into holidays. We're going into the big time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going into this time when we make our P&L of the year. And a lot of people are going into it knackered. So I think, if you're in HR, if you're in leadership positions, there's definitely a look after your team vibe at the moment. But, it could just be that people have been out partying too much over the last few days. So that could be
Vegas does that to you, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Vegas does that.
Yeah. I guess what I would add there, I don't have like the Taylor Swift reference, but one that I'm thinking of is more so aligned with Wendy's, the fast food restaurant. Their slogan is like, "Where's the beef?" But I feel like the state of the industry, when I'm talking to some of the retailers, is kind of like, "Where's the growth in this situation?" So, how do you kind of drive volume? Is it going to come through traditional trade, or is it going to come through these adjacent revenue streams? We all know that margins are being hit. We just talked about that a bit earlier, how their net margins are about 1.6% in the US, 0.9% in the UK. So it's kind of just everyone's just coming together to figure out what's going to happen, where's the growth going to come from. And I think we were hoping that across the 3 days of the show that we could assist with that. So, yeah.
Chris, where do you land? I mean, we've got people who are tired. They're trying to get their stuff together. We've got people trying to find new revenue streams because margins are getting thinner. But where do you like put the state of the grocery industry after the last 3 days?
I think that's all true. I think the word I would use to sum it up is pragmatism. I feel like the entire industry is just being very pragmatic right now. And grocery, when you look at it across retail, it's probably always been more pragmatic than other segments of retail. But you and I talk about it on our show all the time. Like, for the last couple of years, we've been calling it the show me the money year or years, because it seems like the tech investment is really just going to those things that have a card carrying case of ROI attached to them versus the fun, fancy tech projects that everyone likes to do in their corner, which makes sense because the issues are real, particularly the labor issues, which I've heard over and over again, you know, at this show and coming into the show are real, and you got to figure out what to do with them. So yeah, pragmatism would be my word to sum everything up.
Yeah, it sometimes makes our job harder picking our Fast Five for the week, because it used to be like, oh my God, Amazon's going to do this crazy new store and they're going to make everybody use smart carts. And now it's like, well, everybody's making sound financial investments. They're thinking through these pragmatic decisions.
Now just walk out is cumbersome, right? Yes, that was the quote this week, right?
I mean, all credit to my colleague Joe, who wrote that it's ROI, not R&D.
Yes.
I think that's right.
That's a good.
All right, let's go on to the next one. What's next for the evolution of the physical grocery store? Speaking of Amazon, Chris, we're going to you first on this one.
Yeah, this one was interesting. I didn't know this. I didn't think about this at all coming in, but I think given the attention on retail media, there's going to be a continued focus to figure out how to unlock that in the store, because that's where the volume comes and that's where most of the data is sitting latent for us to understand around all of our shoppers. And what hit the nail on the head for me with that was when Pepsi's VP of digital commerce was on stage, and he was sharing actual case studies of where they've had success attributing digital media spend to in-store behavior. And the two that he mentioned, which I thought were really interesting, were Sam's Club Now and their mobile app, because they're pumping retail media through that.
Yeah.
You saw, or not Sam's Club Now, but Sam's Club and its Scan and Go app. And you saw their announcements with their big store this week. And then the other one was the Caper Cart, you know, which like folks like some of the Schnucks teams in here today, they're deploying for that same reason. So I think when you talk about the physical retail store, that's where we're going to see a lot of the investment and the momentum. But how you actually unlock that in a fiscally responsible way through either one of those tools, I think is still a moving target and hasn't really been determined yet.
Yeah.
But I still see a lot of energy going in that direction.
Yeah, the same session, one of the panelists totally dissed your Walmart radio as the perfect in-store media execution.
That's right.
I know you were very disappointed about that.
Yes.
Rock, where do you stand? Anything here that you would throw in? What components are in the next evolution of physical grocery?
Yeah. So I don't want to keep, rehashing some of the things that we talked about just earlier as part of the Zeitgeist presentation. But I think in terms of, in addition to kind of unlocking retail media in store, I think, still those technology investments that are going to help make the store more efficient are super important as well.
Yep.
What I'm thinking about right now and that's coming to mind is just the different technology that can help with assessing kind of out of stock. BJ's has rolled that out and partnered with Tally, and that's on all of their stores. I think it's one of those technologies where we're seeing it kind of being adopted so well that it's kind of scaled. And so we think that obviously there are going to be other technologies that people are interested in that are going to unlock efficiencies, make things easier. I'm also thinking about different technologies that can help with fulfillment and store picking as well. So those are probably equally important.
Yeah. I mean, we in thinking about this, we'd come up with a model that I was really proud of. It was my 4C model. That the role of the future store is going to be content, so store as a marketing channel, basically, community, collection, and convenience. It didn't really work because actually by collection we meant delivery, but I was a D, so I couldn't have that. And then Ethan from Placer AI, who some of you might know, did a presentation earlier where he completely ripped the idea of convenience to pieces and said it's just not important at the moment. People are prepared to put in more effort, to travel more, to find the right value equation for their family. So my 4 C's is a little dented, if I'm honest, but I think the core of content as a marketing channel we talked about, but the other area is about community. And we touched on it a little bit more than we have done in other shows. And I think That's so important. Franz Muller, and we've had great feedback from his opening day keynote. The global CEO of Ahold Delhaize, talked about the importance of their stores in the community, the roles in the community. I think with community, it links to purpose, it links to sustainability. We're still not talking about sustainability enough as an industry, and I think that's been absent from the conversation the last couple of days. But yeah, this whole idea of the stores and their role in the communities as often, they're often one of the biggest employers and one of the biggest businesses in any local community. And I don't think we make enough of that.
All right. Moving on.
All right. My turn. Let's put 4 minutes on the clock. Thank you, Ann. All right, Raquan, let's go back to you. How imperative do you think adjacent or additional revenue streams are going to be for retailers and grocers going forward?
Yeah. So me and Ben almost had to battle it out for this one because this is a topic that we're both super interested in. And I think we would say that it's resounding yes. It's super imperative that retailers be thinking about adjacent revenue streams. We shared some statistics around kind of why what retail media could do to potential margins. But I did want to call out maybe a different statistic that we saw from Bain's Naomi Alford when she was giving her research presentation, where she said that by 2030, they believe that 1/3 to 1/2 of the retail profit pool will be retail media. So again, I think it just shows the importance of that being kind of the way to kind of unlock growth and potential profit. And then the only other thing that I would probably add here is while it is kind of an opportunity that is right smack in front of the faces of retailers, I think you still need to be pretty smart and strategic about how you enter that opportunity and make sure that you're delivering on targeting and you're getting the measurement right and you're delivering the value to the brands so that you can make it all work. And not just doing a haphazard job at it.
Yeah, so. And there's still so far to go on that. We're just at day one in every stage on that. I mean,
yeah, Ben, I was gonna, do you think is it all about retail media for the additional revenue streams, or is it mostly about it? How do you think about that?
So it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
But retail media is absolutely dominating. Data monetization is really big, and selling insight and selling software and selling consultancy and selling hardware is also a big part of it. But retail media is just kind of gobbling up all of the oxygen in the room on this one. And if there was a great illustration for that, for me, so 2 years ago, some of you would have been here, Shop Talk, Groceryshop, 22, we had a keynote panel, and it was all about e-com profitability. And one of the participants was Natalie Knight, who is then CFO from Ahold Delhaize. And she publicly stated that their ambition was to grow a retail media business worth $1 billion. So that was just 2 years ago. Franz Muller on Monday, the ambition now in the strategy is $3 billion for their adjacent revenue streams. So that, for me, illustrated the speed of change. One of the other things, we'd thought about it as a way to offset the rising cost of e-com.
Right.
I had a conversation with 2 grocers on Sunday evening, both of whom have got very small e-commerce businesses, and both of whom said their number one priority was retail media. So it's kind of more than just offsetting. It's actually just how do we grow this profit pool. But the other thing is that there seems to be this, the big are going to really benefit here.
Yeah.
And the small will benefit because they can buy services from the big, and it's the bit in the middle I worry about.
Okay. Ann,
yeah, I think the thing that we didn't talk a lot about here that is also another adjacent revenue stream, Amazon is a great case in point, is membership programs. I think there's a lot of benefit to be had on one hand from, just getting your customer to be more sticky because you're offering them so many things for that monthly membership, but also you get to know more about them, which then I think helps feed into personalized shopping experiences. It feeds into your retail media possibilities. And so I think that's another area where grocers really need to start thinking about partnerships and what makes the most sense to get people to stay consistent with them as a retailer.
Yeah, and Kroger had the big Disney Plus announcement this week to that point. All right, Ann, let's go back to you for the first first response on this one. What's the best AI use case or case study that you heard here at Groceryshop?
I mean, coming from a production team at a major top 10 US retailer at Target, I have to say that where I'm hearing the most investment in Gen AI right now across the board is in personalization when it comes to marketing materials. So the ability to really drive in and take a $300,000 photo shoot budget to shoot just basic product photography on different sets and backgrounds now can be divvied out by what region of the country this person is, and it costs tenths of cents on the dollar to create those images when it used to be a team of 25 people and a budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the impact that I think retailers are starting to see from that are going to have a huge impact on the industry and change a lot of jobs for a lot of people working in those departments.
Pretty compelling.
Great.
Brock?
Yeah, no, I would agree that we're definitely seeing it unlocking creativity and in marketing efficiency. We had a speaker who I see in the audience here, MTS, who's the head of performance marketing at Reckitt, and he talked a lot about how you can leverage generative AI to just be more efficient with your marketing to help with tagging a content. And I believe he mentioned that it led to kind of a reduction in hours and time put in by being like 50%. So really great example of that. I guess my additional comment here would be that we've kind of created what we kind of see as the framework for what the generative AI use cases could potentially be. We talked about how it can unlock efficiencies, how it could propel and drive creativity, and the last one being how it could transform shopping experiences. That last one is probably the part where we weren't seeing like too much here at the show. So we'll be very keen to kind of see what that looks like in the future. Obviously, there's the leaders like Walmart and Carrefour who are developing more consumer-facing technologies that could offer a better shopping experience by using generative AI. So I think we'll continue to see how they're progressing with that. And I guess maybe the only other thing to mention would be that we did find out through our startup pitch program that there is interest in Gen AI startups, because a company called Simulate AI won startup pitch competition, and they're kind of focused on leveraging generative AI for search.
Yeah.
So.
And that really surprised me. It feels like we're so far past the peak of Gen AI hype that for a Gen AI company to win startup pitch, which is an audience vote, I thought was really interesting. For me, some of what I've heard kind of leans into this, what's been a theme of the show, which has been around kind of making, and the importance right now in the current climate, the current industry, of making really small incremental gains. Now, in the previous panel before, I've just heard Adgil Hopp, who leads the global grocery practice at Deloitte, basically say that that's rubbish. We should be focusing on the big picture. But when you're only making 0.9% on margin, at scale, all these tiny little incremental things really matter and really build up in our industry. There was a great presentation from Caleb Carr from Snook Markets, and he used this great term, which was about they're using Gen AI to automate hate. So you're not suddenly going to see lots of awful social media posts from Snook. That's not their style. What he meant is how you remove the things that people don't like doing,
Right,
to be able to free up time to add value, and that I think is really valuable for us to think about.
Yeah.
Whoa, you just made it. Close call, Ben. All right, next one, technology that excited you the most these last 3 days. Raquan, let's go to you first.
Yeah. I think the technology that I was super excited about, and I might get some grunts or groans in the audience, but it was definitely to Ann, your point, the use of technology to kind of drive in-store retail media. So whether it's the opportunity that Instacart, Caper Cart could provide, or potentially with the Scan and Go app that Sam's Club is building. I think those are the opportunities within in-store retail media that excite me. I think some of the other ways that you can use, you can kind of drive in-store retail media, I'm not so certain about, like whether it's just about kind of growing digital screens in the store. I don't know if that like gets to kind of what I would imagine the brand advertisers kind of like want in terms of being able to kind of deliver more targeted and personalized ads and make them make them measurable and attribution. I feel like that part is a little bit further along, but when you can do it on a digital device that kind of travels with you as you're shopping throughout the store, that kind of makes it a bit more compelling. So that's the technology that I'm interested
I
in.
agree. And maybe we could do this another way and say like the technology that you were least excited about too, if that helps you talk about it in another way too. Because I have to say, like the Caper Cart, I'm with you, Rock. That one blew me away. But Chris, I know that you have some thoughts on that.
Caper Cart? That was your favorite too?
I think that was one of the things, not that it's revolutionary what's happening, but I've been a skeptic for a long time about that. And so seeing it put to use in the way that it has been and the gamification that they announced this week, I think I might be softening, but what do you think? What excited you?
Well, I think on that one, I mean, just going back to that, and like I think the Caper Cart is exciting, but it has to be tempered excitement.
For
I
sure.
think. Like, and the reason I say that is, you know, you take, like, let's go back to the dichotomy of Sam's Club Scan and Go app and the Caper Cart, right? Sam's Club has the audacity to go build a store where you have to use the Scan and Go app to shop it.
Yeah.
And then you say to yourself, well, why can't a retailer do the same thing with the Caper Cart? And they can't. And I've been talking to people, I've been asking people all this question throughout the show in the back halls. And what they're telling me is there's a lot of things that prevent it. There's the business model of the cart itself. There's the dynamics of how the cart is built, like where can you put the kids? There's also where do you put the big bottles of water? There's no under tray to the cart. And so it's a big risk for somebody to do that, to take the risk and to go that bold and try to convert their operation to this, even though from all intents and purposes, we hear that people like using the cart. And yet, when you compare the adoption rates at Sam's Club with Scan and Go, 30% of shoppers use the Scan and Go. The best store at Instacart, according to David McIntosh, their chief connected stores offer, is 10% of transactions. It's a big delta, you know? And so I don't know which wins out, but there's a lot of things that have to happen for the cart to take off to the way it probably, ideally, I think we all would like to think it would coming out of this conference, but.
Well, I mean, certainly the street likes it.
Yep.
The Instacart share price. Obviously off the back of Fidji, their CEO's appearance here at the show, all-time high, because they're buying the story of the connected store and they're buying the retail media plays. But for me, it was Chris Nicholas, CEO of Sam's Club. I love a good grocery store. I geek out a good grocery store. I've scarcely been as excited to think about a store as what they talked about with what they're going to do with Sam's in Dallas. I mean, the audacity to take your phrase, Chris, to say 100% everybody has to use Scan and Go. Everybody has to check out via the computer vision. I think that's game-changing, absolutely game-changing.
All right.
All right, Anne, let's change it up here a little bit. What was your quote of the show?
Okay,
We've had a few gems already.
Yes, my quote of the show was when you and I interviewed Franz Miller, the CEO of Ahold Delhaize, and you actually asked him. You said, "What is the most important technology or area of investment that you think retailers should prioritize right now?" And his answer was data. I can't do his accent, which this sounded better when his accent.
It's probably a good thing for
Data,
everyone.
proper and clean data.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that was really interesting. You and I were both kind of taken aback, like,
Well, I almost fell over standing up because, like, I've never heard a retail CEO ever say the word data to anyone.
Right.
And
But
it was really cool.
yeah, it makes the case for the kind of things that we're talking about where, you know, what does the store of the future look like? What are the key components of a successful retail media network and in-store programming? Data is a big proponent of that. But anybody else? Ben, what do you have?
So I'm going to share one from a gentleman, Dr. Oliver Vogt, who is leading Tesco's efforts to drive kind of additional revenue through consultancy, micro-fulfillment, but his incredible background in data science and in Amazon and in fulfillment models. And he's someone I've got to know a little bit over the last 6 months, a year, and he's somebody who actually is really interesting to listen to when you get the chance. And he had this lovely quote, which was, "Innovation isn't isolation."
Yeah.
And that's a massive mind shift change in our industry. Other industries talk about collaboration and cooperation and friendly relationships much more than we do. It's so competitive. Those wafer thin margins put a massive barrier in the way of collaborating in the way that Silicon Valley does, for example. So to hear it from Tesco, I thought was really interesting. And we talked about it a bit with Fiji, when, Simo, when we talked about Uber coming on their platform. And she was just very straightforward. Yeah, they're a competitor, but actually they do restaurants much better than us. We can solve a pain point for our customers quicker by collaborating and trying to build our own. So why not? And I think there is this mind shift is slowly changing towards more collaboration and finding more areas to work together as an industry to solve pain points for our customers.
Yeah, 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Raquan, what was yours?
Yeah, no, I think mine is kind of related to this idea of collaboration, but more so internally at a CPG organization. So an executive by the name of Uyan Kanan at McCormick said that budgets are emotional. And what he was referring to was just this idea of as things start to shift towards an advertising spend starts to go more towards retail media, where is that going to come from? Is it going to come from trade marketing? Is it going to come from brand? And so it was about a recognition of different parts of the organization being protective of their dollars, but not maybe in the best interest of the organization. So how do you kind of solve for that and correct that? So that was mine.
Yeah, mine came from Mark Ibbotson, the former EVP of operations at Walmart, at a breakfast on yesterday morning. And I'll just leave it with you. And I thought it was a good quote that captures what I think the last session before we came into here was summarizing at the end, which is he said, "The challenge is on us to create better jobs for our associates," which goes in a little bit to what you said too, Ben, about automating the hate, right? And so I think that's an important lesson for us to take back as we go back to our organizations.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. From all the content, what surprised you the most? My surprise, and I want to tell you guys this, is that I loved the themed candy in every room. I didn't get a chance to tell you that, but it has been such a delightful treat. But Rock, we're going to start with you here. What has been your biggest content surprise?
Yeah. So I would say we kind of had a couple of sessions that we knew going into it. We're going to address it head on, but I was surprised at just how much conversation was being had around brand loyalty and customer loyalty. And so wasn't necessarily expecting the conversation to evolve on this subject in regards to Ram Krishnan, the CEO of PepsiCo North America Beverages, just discussing this. But he shared on stage how he's kind of encouraging his company to not just think about brand loyalty, but what he's calling precision loyalty, which is like this idea of moving away from mass marketing to offering more personalized messages. So to hear someone that senior leaning in on more like personalization and not just going after kind of like big Super Bowl ads and things of that nature was really interesting and compelling. So that's one thing on the brand side as it relates to loyalty. And then I would say on the retailer side, what I'm finding, I think it's related and to what you were talking about with these membership programs, is that it's feeling like it's kind of a race to just add as many benefits as you can to these membership programs. So whether you're just adding, subscription services and bundling that in, I guess that's a draw in a way for kind of customer acquisition. But
I mean, we've got to run out of streaming services too.
Yeah.
Right, we are.
Disney
I mean,
Plus,
retailers are going to be
yeah.
creating these streaming services just to be
yeah.
able to bundle them back into their loyalty scheme.
Well, they're going to have to go into other categories. I mean, they're going to have to go into hospitality. They're going to have to go into, other areas beyond just here's your streaming service for
That's right.
free for the month with your membership. Ben, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, my surprise was actually a bit of a negative, and I think we've given a lot of credit to Instacart during the conversation, and a lot of credit to Fiji Simo and what she's done. But one of her answers was a real surprise to me and also a disappointment. So Fiji also sits on the board of OpenAI. So she's got this unique view of where generative AI in the long term might play in grocery. And when I asked her the question, the long-term vision that she gave was that it'll enable marketing personalization at scale. It's like, I kind of thought there might be something else. There might be something bigger that we haven't seen.
Give
maybe,
me more,
maybe there isn't.
Fiji.
Maybe that's why we passed the hype, because actually that is, and it is, if we can do that, that's big. But I just kind of thought there might be something else.
Yeah. Okay, last one. What was the most interesting thing you learned off stage, Ben, away from the content program?
I was in a really interesting conversation. It was all about shrink. And I think we thought shrink would be bigger on the agenda than it turned out to be. But
Right.
I think, what did I learn? I learned I didn't realize how much of a bigger problem shrink is in the US versus Europe. So it was a closed forum, and retailers shared some numbers, and we had some global operators in the room. And the delta between the shrink, and this is theft. This isn't, and this is theft from the shop floor rather than in the supply chain of waste. Much higher, so, at a delta that was greater than I expected it to be. But what came out of that conversation really clearly is that retailers who have some level of control over the flow of shoppers in their store, so whether it's a one-way system, whether it's gated, whether it's a retail format that requires you to check in, to be a member, those retailers have significantly lower shrink than supermarkets where you can walk in. Now, it's kind of so logical when you say it, but if this is the case, we're going to see more. I know Tesco are already starting to put one-way systems in some of their superstores in the UK.
Wow.
You know, if we really want to exploit or capitalize on the in-store retail media opportunity, we're going to need to know who the shopper is when they come into the store rather than when they leave. So I think there's going to be a couple of factors that are going to come together for future store formats where there is more control over the shoppers and there's more knowledge of who they are.
Got it. Raquan?
I guess some of the things that I was learning off stage, I think, is just the appetite that it feels that retailers have more and more around kind of working and partnering with one another. I think that one of the announcements that we kind of had in the lead up to the show was Tesco's announcement of their Transcend technology and what that could unlock for assisting retailers around the world with their fulfillment in e-commerce businesses. So, I think just the retailer relationship and collaboration seems to be kind of shining and being talked about a little more. Obviously, Tesco has, it's a solution that they've commercialized and want to sell, but I think to Ben's point around, innovation not being in isolation, I think we're starting to break through on that.
Anne, what was the biggest thing you learned?
I was in another breakfast session, and I was very surprised to learn that the number of retailers who are investing right now in Gen AI search on their websites. Shocked, like from clubs all the way to regional grocers. We hear the big news about Walmart obviously doing generative AI with their search. I think it shows me that as consumers, we're going to start shopping very differently. And I think we're already getting very acclimated to the search results that we're seeing from Gemini on Google, where it's giving us, 3 bullet points in context for our search instead of just serving up 3,000 images for us to look through. So I think that to me is a real telltale sign of kind of where the future of consumer behavior of search and what their expectations are going to be from grocers.
Nice. I got 20 seconds. Mine was that checkout free as a concept just really isn't that important anymore. Like, it just seems like it's not something that consumers care about that much. It's not something that retailers care about that much. It's being put out in the press that that's what the new Sam's Club store is about. I don't think it's about that. I think it's more about understanding the data flow in that store through the setup of the store. So that's mine.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've been buzzed out, but I just want to take a minute to reflect on what Sam's are doing, because I think it could be so important. They're making every single shopper have a digital device to be able to shop that store. That's huge. When
but
you
they
think
can. Like, I think that's the point of clarification here too, Ben. Like, like a regional grocer can't require that right now. As a member of Sam's Club, I think you're like buying into that a little bit more so than Like, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think.
No, 100%, but they've got to try it. I mean, it almost
Yeah.
makes me want to go.
Oh, I
jealous.
agree completely. I just think it's important that we make that distinction here because I think like it's not apples to apples when you're a grocer sitting in the audience who wants to test these things. Like,
Well, it depends where things converge too, right?
Yeah.
Like Ben was saying, like if shrink becomes a big issue too, and you have to go to controlled entry points and exit points, then
Yep.
that facilitates the greater adoption of scan and go throughout the industry too. So I
Yeah.
don't think any of us know how the convergence is going to happen yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sam's Club is set up to benefit from it the most by how it operates.
Exactly.
And they've got the
Limited SKUs.
audacity to do it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Audacity.
Audacity. That's the word of this
that's right.
session.
Well, on behalf of the Grocery Shop team, I just want to thank it. Well, firstly, thank you for staying to the very end.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. We're going to wrap up so you can get to your flight. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for the call conversations. We really appreciate it. It's a community, not a show, so thank you. Dates for next year is Sunday. It's an afternoon start, Sunday the 28th of September, through to lunchtime Wednesday, October the 1st. So an extra evening for even more parties to be even tighter afterwards. So thank you, really appreciate it, and safe journey home, everyone. Thank you.